Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Weekly Waypoint. Today, I want to talk about the fact that I just bought a Switch 2, and while that might not be the most recent use in gaming as a whole, it is the most recent use in my gaming life, so I would like to talk about, my experiences with it. I've had it for 3 or 4 days now, and I want to talk about the console itself as an upgrade to the Switch 1, and I want to talk about the games I've been playing with it, from Mario Kart World to older games which have had upgrades to just older games in general, and getting back into the Switch ecosystem and all that lovely stuff. So this one might be a little bit longer than normal. Hope you brought snacks. First of all, very briefly, my history with the Switch, my entire life story, I know. I got the original Switch probably in the same time frame of like around 6 months into its life cycle, back in 2017, and interestingly, with it, I got Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 7, as most people did. Mario Kart 8, sorry. And this time around, some of the games I'm playing most are Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart World. So, time is a flat circle and nothing ever happens. But when I first got my original Switch, I was very excited because I had skipped the Wii U like most sane people. Sorry, Wii Uvians. But over time, that excitement petered out, and I ended up just using it for Nintendo console exclusives. And I was almost dreading the announcement of the Switch 2 because it would mark a expensive, for my price budget, purchase I would need to make to continue having a Nintendo exclusives machine. But early in the Switch's life cycle, it wasn't the case. It was my main console for about a year or two, and so I remember wishing for every game I liked to be ported onto the Switch, and that would be the main place that I bought any game that was on there, and I loved it. And again, over time it just became a Switch exclusives. I used it less and less. I think there were actually years where I turned it on a handful of times. So how does the Switch 2 compare, and is that in the Switch 2's future as well? Well, first of all, I can't see the future, so I can't tell you, but I don't think so. The Switch 2 is undoubtedly a nice upgrade. It is real nice. It feels nice and solid and steady and heavy in the hands in a way that the original didn't. It's kind of just sleek the way it attaches to the screen magnetically now instead of slides onto it. The screen itself is gorgeous, by the way. It is so nice. It is bigger, which is very much appreciated. And while it's not a OLED screen, it is very pretty in terms of it's 120 hertz. I think someone said it's got individually illuminated pixels, whatever the hell that means. I kind of already assumed pixels were individually illuminated, but whatever. And honestly, it's nicer than my monitor, which is very old at this point. I've had it for over a decade. And it's funny because even though playing games docked is still a superior experience in terms of resolution and frame rate sometimes. Actually, I don't know if frame rate changes. Anyway, my handheld screen is nicer to look at than my monitor, so sometimes I feel like, oh man, I kind of want to play this, on my main screen because it's bigger and it's where I'm comfortable right now, and I want to record gameplay footage and stuff like that, but I want to play it handheld because it looks nicer. I've never actually seen a 120Hz screen before, and while I don't know if any of the games I play support 120 frames a second, some of them are extremely smooth, so maybe. I know that list is surprisingly small, though, of games which do that. But here's a question for people who know things about how hardware works. Do 60 frames a second games look smoother on a 120Hz screen as compared to a 60Hz screen? I would imagine not, but maybe that's the case and that's what I'm picking up here. Either way, it's got that kind of never looked at such a beautiful screen experience of your mind forms this kind of illusion of sometimes I forget I'm looking at a screen and it just looks like I have a window into a different reality because it's so smooth and bright and lovely and wonderful. Not graphics-wise. In fact, the game where this occurs most is actually a fairly old Switch 1 game. Actually, it's not fairly old. It got ported in 2024, but we'll talk about that later. It's a port of a 3DS game. It is not very graphically intricate. But yes, as an upgrade to the Switch 1, in conclusion, Switch 2, very nice. Wish it was a bit cheaper, understand why it isn't. Oh, and also, I think the commonly held opinion about the Joy-Cons is grumbling about the fact that they're not that colourful anymore, and the colour is very understated. You can only see it underneath the analog stick and in the little magnetic, clamps area. They're not called clamps, but you know what I mean. I prefer that. I actually, when I went to get my original Switch 1, I tried to get the version which was non-coloured Joy-Cons, which was what the Switch 2 looks like by default, the black Joy-Cons. Although I think it was more space grey. for the Switch One. And I'd swear that version of the Switch One existed at launch, but most people didn't seem to have it, and they didn't have it in stock, so I got the neon blue and red, and I always... I never actually loved that look. I don't know, I guess I hate fun, but I prefer my technology to look a little bit more sleek and sexy. As for the firmware / software, you know, Switch 2 is a new console, it does have new features. What do I think about all that? I haven't used the features all that much. I haven't been playing any games which really make use of mouse mode. I kind of forgot mouse mode was a thing, and I was on the home screen the other day. I was like, oh shit, mouse mode. I just tried it, and suddenly there was a mouse, and I was clicking around the home screen, and it was wild. I have heard that the lack of a scroll wheel of any kind does kind of restrict it from really being a proper mouse that you would want to use in a long format. Like I've heard with Civ 7, it can be a bit frustrating not having a scroll wheel. But it's very cool that it exists, and I hope that the main reason for it existing is to help with a Nintendo DS / maybe even 3DS NSO collection somewhere down the line. Haven't had the opportunity to use Game Chat yet, but I hear it's basically Discord, which is cool. Although Discord doesn't really do the screen sharing thing in the same way. You can share your screen, but you don't have a thing where your game gets smaller and you can see other people's shared screens below. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the future Discord does implement that though. Although maybe that's a little bit beyond the realms of possibility in terms of, you know, the amount of customizability Discord has access to on your screen. But yeah, I want to try that at some point. It's a lot faster. The new eShop is lightning fast and I love it, and there are certain games, even ones which haven't had updates for the Switch 2, which just naturally, as part of being run on better hardware, load really fast. And as someone who is currently playing Fallout 76 with a friend and has that installed on an external SSD, boy do I love having fast loading times, because the loading times on that game are long. And then there's the GameCube NSO library, which is exclusive to the Switch 2 because the Switch 1 wouldn't be able to run it, apparently. And I'll talk about some of the games I've been playing later, but it is really nice and exciting to have GameCube NSO, because while I never owned a GameCube, the PS2, which is of the same generation, is one of my favourite eras of gaming of all time. It's what I grew up with. I also grew up for PS1, but I preferred the PS2. It was a sizable upgrade when it came out. And a lot of my favourite PS2 games also had GameCube versions, and I really hope that they continue to include third-party GameCube titles alongside the first-party ones that I never got to play. As for getting back into the Switch ecosystem, yeah, like, I haven't been looking at NSO updates for a while, so there's some Nintendo 64 games on there that I hadn't noticed being added, which really excited me. It's been fun browsing the eShop and just seeing what's available on the system nowadays. It's still a little bare on the Nintendo Switch 2 game side of things, which is to be expected because the console's still very new. And I find what's funny, because we had a Direct this week, which I was going to make a video about, but it was just kind of boring, so I didn't bother. What I find funny is I was still watching Directs, every Direct, even if I wasn't playing my Switch all that much, because, you know, third-party entries can be announced and stuff, like Square Enix RPGs, which is probably what I'm mostly there for, if I'm being honest, back before I got my Switch 2. And I used to get really bored when Directs were just ports and Switch 2 upgrade editions, and now that's all I want to see, man. I mean, not really all I want to see, of course, but like, I would get so excited. My big wishlist item right now is I want the Xenoblade Chronicles games to get Switch 2 editions, because unfortunately there are a handful of games which always looked fuzzy in handheld mode, but because they're now on a bigger screen and they haven't been adjusted in any way, the fuzziness and the graininess is way more apparent. It's not a problem any more than it already was when you're playing it docked, but when you're playing Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition in handheld mode, it looks downright not good. So I'm really hoping that just gets like an upscale. That's all it needs. And then I will probably try and play through that game start to finish, because I've only ever got 15 hours into that game. I don't know why I went all posh then, but I did. Firstly, I watched Chugga Conroy play up to, is it Magna Forest? Is that the name of the area? The tropical region where you first meet a certain race of people. And then I got up, I remember I stopped the Let's Play there. I was like, this game is too good. I want to play this for myself. and then I played through it myself, and because I had just watched Chugga Conroy play through it and I knew everything that was going to happen, it felt like a bit of a chore getting up to that point, and then I got up to that point and I promptly got distracted by something else because I wasn't all that engaged yet. And that was about 5 years ago now. And over the course of the intervening 5 years, I have every now and again gone back to it and tried to get back into it and done a little bit more of a story, but I think I'm going to have to start from scratch. And so currently I'm holding off, hoping that it gets a Switch 2 upgrade so that I can start from scratch and have it look decent. But also I realized one of the things that put me off of playing Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and probably just spending more time on my Switch in general over the last 5 years, is that game is where I first noticed I had stick drift, and I never replaced my Joy-Cons because they're expensive, and I just wasn't that invested in my Switch at the time, and so I tried to just grit my teeth and bear it and play with drifting Joy-Cons, and it's so nice not to have that problem anymore. It's one of those things where it's like, it's fine, and then you fix the problem and you're like, oh, it was not fine. It is so much nicer not dealing with that problem anymore. And you know, Joy-Cons still don't make for the best, most comfortable controller in the world, but when have Nintendo ever had the most comfortable controllers in the world? What I should probably have done is invested in a Pro controller, because that would still be compatible now, but, you know, whatevs. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the console and what I would like to see from it and stuff. What have I actually done so far with it? What are the games I've been playing? Well, first and foremost, Mario Kart World is the only Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive game I owned so far, and I bought the bundle, basically. And I have a lot of thoughts about Mario Kart World, so strap in. As I said, probably going to be a longer episode this week. Mario Kart World is both not what I expected and kind of what I expected, and it's both something I really, really enjoy and something which I kind of wish was a little bit different in some ways, so I have conflicting thoughts, but mostly I'm giving it like an 8 out of 10. If I were to give it a score, I'm really enjoying it, I really like it, I'm going to keep playing it. But it's an interesting game because some of the things I really like about it are also symptoms of the things I don't like about it. For instance, the Grand Prix. So tracks in the Grand Prix are a bit weird in this one. Only the first track in each cup really is a individual circuit, and even then it's doing like the Mario Kart 8 DLC thing of like, oh, every lap is different. You know, there might be a slightly different route or slightly different weather effects or environmental hazards and stuff like that, and that's fun. But it gets a little bit extreme after track 1. After track 1, usually track 2 is, okay, now we're starting in track 1 and we're going to track 2, basically, and only the final lap of track 2 is really a circuit of that track. So for instance, I would say one of the greatest offenders of this is one of the levels I was really excited to see return, which is Airship Fortress, I think is its name, from DS, the one where you've got the bullet bills at the start and all that, and you go across the airship and then you get shot out of a cannon and go down a big winding tower and stuff like that. I love that track, and I was really excited to see it make a return. You only get one circuit of that traditional track, and it's like the final lap, and I don't love that. Also, due to the fact that you spend a lot of time going from one track to the next track within a Grand Prix, I was finding early on that tracks were lacking, like, especially the new ones that weren't returning tracks, they were lacking an identity of their own. I was kind of like, and this might change when I become more familiar with the game and play it more, but I was like, wait, when does the actual track begin and the journey to the track end? And like, you go through a few different kinds of environments sometimes on the way to the other track, and yeah, it can just get a little bit homogenized as well in terms of like, people complain about the wide tracks in Mario Kart World. I don't think that's a problem the same way it was with the Mario Kart Tour tracks in Mario Kart 8's DLC. If I say Mario Kart any more times, I'm going to throw up. But yeah, as I mentioned, like, the tracks felt like they had a bit less identity to them. This wasn't as much of a problem in later cups. I would say in the last 3 tracks, definitely, like, this is what I'm saying, right? While the tracks have less personal identity to them because of how you get to them, the tracks themselves are stellar. Some of my favorite Mario Kart tracks I've ever seen are in this game. Like, not just returning tracks, but new tracks. They're so good. And something else I noticed in Free Roam, which we'll talk about in a second, is the tracks have more to them than what you actually race on in any given race. Like Airship Fortress, you can get on the airship in Free Roam and drive around it, and there's an entire interior, and there's like balconies and and there's secrets to go and find, and it's so cool. Actually, we might as well talk about free roam now. That's a good transition, right? Well, I'm surprised that free roam is not emphasized more. Free roam, in a weird way, again, contrasting thoughts, both positive and negative, about a feature in this game. Free roam feels both really expansive and amazing and exciting, with loads of secrets and things to go and find and do. It feels like a really good evolution of the series, and at the same time, it feels a little bit half-baked in a weird way. Because when you look at the main menu of the screen, right, it's got like single player, multiplayer, online play, and like network play, and all these different things, and it's all about racing on tracks. And then you have, down in the bottom right, is a little icon that says press the pause button to enter free roam. And it's like, wait, that's free roam? It's not emphasized at all? When I saw this game get announced, and because I haven't really watched anyone playing it, because I would have been tempted to buy a Switch 2 and it would have been a bad idea for me to do so, I thought it was going to be a lot more free roam driven. Like, I thought there was going to be a story attached to free roam. I think over time I did kind of go, okay, I'm not expecting a story when I get in there. But I was expecting at least, like, objectives to go and do and stuff. And like I said, there are things in the open world to go and do. There's power switches, there's question mark tiles to go and collect, and there's coins to go and find. But there's nothing really pointing you to go and do that, and the rewards you get for doing it, honestly, aren't amazing. There are different character skins, but you get them from power-ups, which is a little bit weird. And when you get a power-up and it changes your character's skin for the first time, you unlock that as a permanent skin to go and play in the game. And so I love a little nitpick as well. I don't love that they appear on the character select screen as separate characters. I wish, like, for instance, you just had Mario and then the different outfits you had unlocked for him, instead of just Mario and Cowboy Mario and all these different things as separate entries on the character select screen. But that's a nitpick. But the outfits, or the skins, or whatever you call them, they're not attributed to these secrets. Like, that's what I mean. It's a free roam, and it's not objectives, and it's not things that you go and get these permanent rewards. It's more just a free roam with a bunch of secrets to go and find, and nothing points you to go and do it, and you don't really get any crazy rewards that I've noticed from doing it. You just get these icons, like these tiny little icons you can have next to your name in multiplayer, or I think sometimes like stickers on the side of your bike, for instance, is also what they are. And that's about it from what I've seen. Let me know if I'm wrong on that front, but that's not all that exciting. I think I would have preferred if, like, you got those skins from doing the P-blocks. Like, maybe still have a power-up and you can have them temporarily within a race, and you might be like, man, I really want to unlock that permanently, that would be cool. But to go and do that, go into free roam and go do some P-switches or something, you know? Like, I feel like that would have been a better dynamic for the game. Now, to go back to gameplay real quick, there's not just a Grand Prix, there's also something new called a knockout tour, which is like this elimination round of 6 tracks. And it does the thing that the Grand Prix does, where you have like a circuit, but you go from one track to the next. In fact, I don't think you even do like a lap of any circuit. It's just from going from one location to the next. And there are 6 checkpoints, and you start out with 24 players. And as you go through them, it's like you have to be 18th to continue, you have to be like 12th to continue. And that's really fun. I think that might be my favorite competitive racing mode of the game, especially online. And this is something I've received some pushback on when I've mentioned it, but I'm not sure I love it being a 24 player thing now, because mostly online, Mario Kart has always been about like chaos, and it's not just pure racing, it's luck as well, with items and getting hit and avoiding getting hit and stuff like that. There's some skill to that for sure, but a lot of the time it's luck as well. And I feel like the balance has always been pretty good. It feels like skill matters in previous games. In this game, it feels a little too chaotic with that many players. I don't feel like I'm racing as much as I feel like I'm just surviving and doing my best, you know? I don't feel like personal racing skills really come into it all that much, but that might just be because I haven't played all that much of a game yet online, and I need to get used to it. I don't know. But I don't know. And I think that's why I like Knockout Tour online more than Grand Prix online, because that feels more like surviving. That feels more like what you would want from an elimination race. I'm not trying to be in first the entire time. I just want to get through as many rounds as possible. But yeah, it's real fun. I've heard that there is a way to just race for circuits individually, like as free lap circuits. Apparently you can do it by going into versus and playing that against CPU. Apparently you can vote for that now online. I didn't see any way of doing that. And the races I did online were all kind of like the Grand Prix, one track to the next kind of a thing. It just feels too transitionary being the main thing. And I wish it was more like, let's do 3 laps of Airship Fortress, for example. But apparently you can do that. I just haven't seen that or found out how. So maybe my opinion on that would change in the future. But yeah, overall, I've had a really fun time with Mario Kart World so far. And I'm looking forward to playing a lot more. I really want to unlock every outfit for every character. And every character themselves, of course. And I really want to, you know, finish up the overworld, the free roam, all the secrets and stuff in there too. You're probably watching Mario Kart World footage in this video. I'm gonna be honest, this is the first time I'm ever doing this. I'm recording the commentary first because I don't know how long this is gonna be and I don't want to rush myself. Okay, next up on my Nintendo Switch 2 experience, I wanted to see what it was like to play an upgrade, a Nintendo Switch 2 upgrade of a Nintendo Switch 1 game, and luckily NSO Plus subscribers, which I'm part of a family pack of, get the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom upgrade for free while you're subscribed, which is pretty nice. I forgot they were doing that. I thought I was going to have to make a hard decision between Breath of the Wild and Pokemon Legends ZA because I only wanted to pick up one this month because I've just bought the damn console. It's a lot of money, and I didn't have to choose, so that's fun. So yeah, Breath of the Wild. This is a game that I've never played. Furthest I've ever got through is probably about halfway through it. I've done 2 of the Divine Beasts, and I reset my save, which was... Ooh, that was a decision. And in the years since, there has been one time when I decided I was going to live stream through the game, and that didn't work out. And there's been one time when I decided I was going to make... I was just going to play through the game and do, like, adventures in videos. And that is what I'm going to do, but also... I've started over because that was a while ago now, and I would like to just play through the game. So yeah, anyway, Breath of the Wild. It's still Breath of the Wild. Crazy, shocking. Doesn't actually look really all that much different with the Switch 2 upgrade, except it's a high resolution, which is noticeable and nice. And more noticeably, it is 60 frames a second now. And that shouldn't seem like such a big deal, but it is. That game is so smooth now, and it feels so much nicer to play on Switch 2 than it did on Switch 1. It didn't feel bad to play on Switch 1 by any means, but it definitely felt like I was playing on limited hardware. Whereas on the Switch 2, it feels like I'm definitely playing an upgraded version. It's what they're selling, right? And I'm very motivated to do a full playthrough of this game because it's addictive. The gameplay of like, I'll just do another shrine. I'll just go over here and I'll just, you know, take out these bokoblins and stuff like that. Like, and I have such, despite having never finished the game, I have such fondness for it. Especially the sound effects. It takes me right back to my first days owning a Switch 1 and being super excited about it. And yeah, turns out, you know, as I already said, time's a flat circle. I'm doing that with my early days of having a Switch 2 as well. I almost decided to play through Wind Waker on NSO, but I decided I'll do this instead. So yeah, as I briefly alluded to, I did pick up the Switch 2 upgrade for Pokemon Legends ZA. When it comes to the upgrades in general and charging for them, I know people are very grumpy about it, or some people are very grumpy about it. I can get that, you know. In the past, performance patches have always been free. And if you have an Xbox, the one thing they still have going for them, their performance patches are free. If you play a game on Series X, a lot of the time just automatically it runs better. A lot of the time, specific patches make it run better, but they don't charge for those. The PS5 has, ever since it came out, so I think it's an idea people are used to. And I would say if they were going to charge for it, this is the right price point. It's not egregious. I think it was £7. That's fine. If it was £15 or higher, I would be like, come on, man. But it is basically the difference in price between the standalone Switch 1 and Switch 2 versions of the game being like 50 or 60 quid. It's actually a bit cheaper. So yeah, I guess I'm fine with it, whatever. And yeah, playing Pokemon Legends ZA with a better resolution and a higher frame rate, it just feels the way the game was always meant to be played. When I was playing it on Switch 1, I was generally pleased with its performance, especially in regards to more recent Pokemon games before it. But I was definitely aware that I was playing a pared down version of the game a little bit. And while it never bothered me outright, it was something that I would think about sometimes of like, that would look nicer on a Switch 2. That would perform a bit better on a Switch 2. And I never actually finished that game. Like most Pokemon games, I was really excited about it. I played about half of it, and then I was like, I'll come back to this later. This might be when I come back to it later, but as you're no doubt starting to perceive, there are a lot of Switch 2 games that I've been checking out and I'm excited to play through right now, and I should probably just pick one or two instead of saying I'm going to play through all of them. I also opened up Pokemon Violet to see how it runs, because that's had a free performance patch for the Switch 2, and it's downright surreal seeing that game run at 60 frames a second and have less pop-in and less jagged edges and look nicer. It's so bizarre. And that's probably because I quite recently played through the game from start to finish. It was the Pokemon game I completed last year. And yeah, it's weird. Unfortunately, I can't really bring myself to play it because I'm a little over it now that I've played through the campaign. You know, I had a good time, especially at the end. I talk about that more in my blog post of my favourite games I played last year, which I never got to turn into a video because I was ill. Kritigri.wordpress.com if you want to go read that. And I'm not saying I'm never going to go and do some of the post-game stuff and pick up the DLC and play through that at some point, but right now it's just, you know, I want to play Legends EA more than I want to play Pokemon Violet. I was also curious to see what it would be like to play a game that hasn't been touched, at least as far as I'm aware, for the Switch 2. It hasn't had any updates, it hasn't had any upgrades. It's just a Switch 1 game running on a Switch 2. Does that feel different? So I downloaded Pokemon Sword, which is my favourite mainline Pokemon title of recent times, if we're ignoring the Legends games. And you know, I'm not Digital Foundry, I'm not going to sit here and compare it to Switch 1, but it does feel like it runs smoother. It does look nicer on the handheld screen because it's just a nicer screen. It does feel like a better experience, and the load times are notably faster too. That is the case with some games, not all. It depends how they're coded apparently, but yeah, I think that's the case with Sword. However, I am also aware that some games have got quote-unquote secret upgrades or secret patches that kind of got pushed through without any announcement or fanfare that make them better on the Switch 2. Maybe Pokemon Sword is one of those games, but I kind of feel like they would have made a bigger deal about it if that were the case. Maybe I'm just misremembering how well Pokemon Sword ran on the Switch 1 and it's the same. I actually don't know. This is not a very good... I hope you're not here for like a definitive comparison. I do want to check out Legends Arceus at some point too. I just haven't yet. I hope that game does get a Switch 2 upgrade because I think it would really benefit from it. It's such a good game. I've also been checking out some other Switch 1 games which did not get upgrades. I checked out Metroid Prime Remastered, which is a game I got partway through and got distracted even though I was really loving it. And turns out that's actually a game that's pretty easy to just pick up and play again. I talk a lot about games which are quite difficult to pick up and play again after time away. Metroid Prime Remastered, for whatever reason, is very easy. Like, I remember the environment quite well, without even having to rely on the map. I remember the controls very well, and the story's quite minimal. The story's more just you exploring this area and like learning the lore and stuff. So yeah, I was able to dive right back into that one, and man, that game is so good. I really should give it more attention. I also checked out some Mario Maker 2. I don't know why, I just kind of felt like it. It's been a long time. I went back and replayed my old levels and found out that I was a bastard. I remember being fair. Turns out I wasn't fair, I was a bastard. I downloaded Skyrim and Minecraft because I've got to download Skyrim and Minecraft, and Diablo 3 to be fair. I actually picked that up not too long ago on the Switch 1 because there was like a weekly waypoint in there a few months ago where I was like, oh, I'm falling back in love with my Switch 1, and then I promptly forgot to do that. But yeah, I've tried some of those games and yep, they're still those games. The thing with Skyrim that took me a bit by surprise is that Switch 2 update, that notoriously bad Switch 2 update, which has been fixed since. It only applies to the Anniversary Edition, which I guess is a way of asking for a Switch 2 upgrade, but I don't have the Anniversary Edition, I don't really intend to pick it up. So I was just checking out the Nintendo Switch 1 version of Skyrim, I guess, and it was fine. It looks real nice on the new handheld screen. I can't see myself needing a Switch 2 upgrade for it. I think it might run at 60 frames in. No, it's definitely 30 because that was part of the controversy. One thing I did notice though, it has input lag. And I looked this up, it's always had input lag, I guess I just didn't notice it. Obviously not as notorious as the Switch 2 version had, but yeah, I was like, oh man, I guess I notice input lag now, that sucks for me. You get used to it pretty quickly though. And Minecraft I loaded up and went, yep, it's Minecraft, and I do not feel like playing Minecraft right now, and promptly quit out. Now to get away from discussion of performance, I've also been spending a decent chunk of time exploring NSO editions, and the main one that I've been really excited about and playing the most is something I could have been playing on my Switch 1 if we're being perfectly honest. Because it's a Nintendo 64 title, they recently added Rayman to The Great Escape. The reason I hesitated on that is because I almost called it Rayman Revolution, and that's because that's the version of the game that I grew up playing. For those of you not in the know, there are 4 versions of Rayman 2. There's the original Nintendo 64 version, there's a Windows version, there's a Dreamcast version, and there's a PS2 version. The PS2 version got a new title because it had the most stuff added to it. And Rayman 2 is a game I've been wanting to replay for a very long time. It's probably the highest on my list of most desired replays that I haven't gone back and replayed yet. And man, it's trippy because the Nintendo 64 version of the game has some differences. I believe there's an overworld which the N64 version doesn't have. Instead, it has like this kind of Super Mario-esque, like, it's got an overworld, but it's like, you know, you move from one tile to the next and you press A and you load into the level, whereas Rayman Revolution had like this actual explorable overworld with locations and stuff. I remember there being standing stones, like a Stonehenge kind of deal and stuff like that. But the real trippy thing about it is this game doesn't have voice acting. The N64 version does not have voice acting, which is fine. I mean, they go stuff like that, right? But I remember the lines are the same, the dialogue is the same, so I remember the voice acting. And what's crazy is I have not looked at that game, I have not touched that game, I haven't loaded it up, I haven't watched a playthrough of it in at least a decade. But I'm reading these lines and my head is replaying the voice acting with the same voice and the same inflection as it was on PS2, and it's like, it's so weird. I had this last year when I went back and I replayed Gex Enter the Gecko for the first time in years and years and years. It is so strange how memory works, because there will be things that you cannot recall on your own, but when something jolts your memory, it's still in there, turns out. And it's not even the thing that you see and then go, oh yeah, I remember that. It's something adjacent to it, like the dialogue, that it makes you remember the voice acting. It's so bizarre. But anyway, I'm really enjoying playing Rayman 2. I've got one of the 4 masks, and I think I'm going to keep going, and maybe that'll be the game I revisit this year and play all the way through. That would be cool. But yeah, in terms of GameCube titles, which is a Switch 2 exclusive thing, I'm really excited to check out Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, although looking through NSO titles, I was reminded there are some Game Boy Fire Emblems that I should probably start with. In fact, I think I did start with the one that's just called Fire Emblem, here in the West at least anyway. But there's also Wario World, which I don't know much about. There's Luigi's Mansion, which I did take for a spin last night while talking to Reese, and I was sharing my screen and stuff. And while I really love the cute, spooky aesthetic of, you know, Luigi wandering around a haunted mansion going, Mario! I can't do it right now because my throat's a little weird. I can't stand how that game controls, and I don't have a huge interest in the gameplay, it turns out, which is a bit of a shame. Maybe I'll try it again at some point in the future. Anyway, there's also Chibi Robo. Don't know what that game is. There's Soul Calibur 2, which is a fighting game, which I will try, actually. I'm not a fighting game guy, but I want to be at some point. There's Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, which is the big, title for it, I suppose. There's F-Zero GX, which I'll give a try because I do like racing games, and I have been trying the F-Zero games as they've been showing up. And there's Mario Smash Football, or as people in the States know it, Super Mario Strikers, I believe. And I played a match of that before I recorded this, and it's really fun. I had it on Wii. There's a Wii version of this game. It might be a sequel, actually. And I never played all that much of it, but I would attribute that more to the fact that having the Wii constantly set up was always a bit of a pain in the ass, and so I would only play my absolute favourite games on the Wii, to be honest, in like, you know, certain spurts of time. So now having this GameCube version of a game where you don't have to worry about having a sensor bar or like motion controls or anything, it's very appreciated. I'll probably play a bit more of it. I'm not a big football guy, but this game's really fun. Honestly, I think this is something I really love about NSO, is it's these titles I probably wouldn't otherwise pick up as modern titles, like Mario Tennis and Mario Smash Football and probably Mario Golf. I haven't tried that yet. I know that's on the N64. That are just like replayable, you know. They're not like these story RPG games where you play from start to finish. It's just, you know, I've got 10-20 minutes, I'll play a round of Mario Smash Football on NSO, why not? I think that really suits for service, and you know, having just this bonus game. I felt the same about Game Pass towards the later years that I was subscribed to it. I less enjoy having like long form RPGs on the service and more enjoy having like these repeatable match based games on the service. Although with NSO, also please put the RPGs on there because I'm unlikely to see them leave the service at any point, which was my main problem with Game Pass. But yeah, I really hope they keep up the NSO offerings. I'm dying for them to do a DS one. I know the semantics of that are a little iffy because, you know, it was a very strange console in terms of it had a touch screen, it had 2 screens, all this stuff. But honestly, like, it's so doable. Like, again, I think this is one of the reasons I added mouse mode was in preparation for DS emulation. I really hope so. And even if not, like, we've been emulating the DS ourselves on PCs for years. It's doable. It's fine. I guess to be fair, we've had mouses. But like, like, even if it was a handheld mode only thing, of just like, turn your console to portrait mode. In portrait mode, you will have to use your Joy-Cons separately from the console. The top half of the screen will be dedicated to the top screen, and the bottom half will be dedicated to the touch screen, which you can use as a touch screen on your Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo hire me. But yeah, I'm really hoping that they do not stop adding consoles. I would like to see a Wii Virtual Console added to NSO as well. Again, that one's going to be a little tough because of gimmicks. But, you know, we've seen Wii games get ported to Switch before. We know that there are motion controls on the Switch. So, again, that should be fine. But it would be a little bit, you know, like Super Mario Galaxy on the Switch. It's a little compromised, the experience. But it's playable. That's the other thing as well, like, they wouldn't be able to put Super Mario Galaxy on the service, right? Because they've already re-released Super Mario Galaxy. It would be weird. Although I guess those are technically remasters. But we're stretching the term remaster pretty thin there. I mean, it's worth noting, Super Mario Sunshine isn't on Nintendo GameCube yet. On the NSO system. And is that because they previously sold it as part of a Super Mario Anniversary Collection? I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, the cool thing about having a Switch 2 is, or just a Switch in general, is they're pretty big on demos over here in Nintendo Land. And so I've actually been checking out a couple of demos because games, as it turns out, cost money. And money, as it turns out, is not in great supply when you've just bought a Switch 2. And I heard people talking about Theater Rhythm, right? I'm part of a Final Fantasy XIV community, it's gonna happen. And so I downloaded the demo for Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line, and aside from making you watch like a 3-minute video after your first couple of songs, it's a pretty good demo. It's pretty generous, I would say. It gives you access to... First of all, it's kind of the full game. It's, obviously, there's stuff locked off, right? But it's one of those things where it's like they give you a portion of the full game for free, and your progress transfers forward. I think that's the case anyway. I'm pretty sure that's what it said. And for those of you not aware, Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line is basically an homage to Final Fantasy. It's a rhythm game, so it's like all the soundtracks and stuff. And they have them lined up as like for different games. And they also have like other stuff as well, mostly as DLCs. They have like Octopath Traveler and Chrono Trigger and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. But for the demo, you get access to, I would say it's like the first, because you do like this quest line thing where you go through and sometimes you have choices of songs. So it's not like the first 5 songs, it's like the first 5 parts of the quest line. So it's probably more like 8 or 9 songs per game. But you get access to Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 5, Final Fantasy, I'm doing this off the top of my head, 7, Final Fantasy 13, Final Fantasy 14, and Final Fantasy 15. So I think you get about 50 songs total for free. And they're not the craziest tracks, they do it mostly in linear fashion. So the tracks you play through in the 14 section are mostly A Realm Reborn. In fact, I think they're entirely A Realm Reborn. But I know that there's later expansion tracks later in the game. And I've played a little bit of most Final Fantasies, so I really enjoyed this. I realised Final Fantasy VII probably has, I mean, it's not a surprise to anyone, the best soundtrack of them all, right? Apart from maybe 14. I would say maybe tied. Masayoshi Soken is a force, okay? There's no 16 in the game as well, I should mention. This probably came out before that. But yeah, I had a really good time with it, and I plan on buying it at some point in the future. The other demo I checked out was The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tales. Sorry, I just had to look at the thumbnail there on the Switch because I couldn't remember the name of it. It's a bit of a long-winded, weird one. But When this game was first announced and shown off in a direct, I was like, it looks cool, but it's a Switch 2 exclusive, so I don't care. I've done a lot of like rediscovering titles that I wrote off because they were Switch 2 exclusives. Like, I'm also interested in a Bravely Default remaster. I've never played one of those games, but hey, I can get it now, that's cool. Although I think it might get ported to Switch at some point. Square Enix RPGs usually do with little fanfare. But it was shown off again in this direct we had this week, and it was one of the only things I cared about because they started talking about how you will revisit parts in the overworld during different eras of time, which is something I really liked that last Epoch did, which is a Diablo-style ARPG, right? And sadly, that's not worth checking out anymore because it got sold to some really greedy devs. Or publishers, I should say. But I love that idea, and I know that's why I should play Chrono Trigger. I know. And, this reminded me, like, oh shit, I can actually try the demo now because it was a Switch 2 only demo. That's the thing. Maybe it's not Switch 2 exclusive, maybe it's on a Switch 1 as well, but there was only a Switch 2 exclusive demo, so I'm assuming it's Switch 2 exclusive. Okay, no, I just looked it up. It is coming to Steam on launch, it just only has a Switch 2 demo. Okay, right, got it. Okay, so that brings up an interesting point, which is something I wanted to talk about in regards to getting this Switch 2. How do I now feel about multi-platform games? Because previously, when I considered buying games on the Switch, which were, also on other platforms, I had to take into account two main things. First of all, performance. Second of all, ecosystem. How is this game going to look and perform on a Switch? And did I want to have it on the Switch where it could be handheld and I could be cozy with it? Or did I want to have it on Steam or elsewhere where there's like achievements and I play it on a slightly nicer controller and all this stuff? But a performance thing, for at least this game and a lot of others, is no longer a problem. The demo for this game, 60 frames a second, beautiful, colourful, high resolution, all that stuff, looks probably exactly the same as it will on Steam. So would I get this game on Switch, or would I get it on Steam? Well, it will be cheaper on Steam. It's £50 on Steam, and it's like 60 something on Switch 2. Actually, I take that back, they have not announced a price yet for the Switch 2 version, but going off of other games, it probably will be. But there's also something to be said for the limited nature of my Switch library. So for instance, and this is purely a psychological thing, but when I buy a new RPG on Steam, it is going into a bucket full of other RPGs I have bought in the past that I could go and play at any time, some of which I have not ever booted up, some of which I have started and never finished. For instance, if I were to buy Bravely Default 2, for example, which is on Steam, I could buy that, and I do kind of want to, or I could not buy that and play through Chrono Trigger. Different games, of course, but you know what I mean. It's a very similar style of game. I would get a similar kind of thing out of it, and it makes me hesitate on getting Bravely Default 2 on Steam because I go, why would I get this when I could just go play this other game I haven't even started yet? Whereas on Switch, I have a much more limited library, and there are less games I own like that. I don't have almost every Final Fantasy game on Switch. I don't have almost every Dragon Quest game on Switch. I don't think I even really have a JRPG on Switch like that. Do I? I'm trying to think now, I don't think I do. And so the prospect of getting it on Switch is suddenly more attractive because I'm building out that library. Again, it's all psychological. I'm probably going to be sitting in the same location playing it, and the game's going to mostly look the same and mostly feel the same to play, but for whatever reason, that's just something that's in my noggin, and I'm pretty sure that's not exclusive to just my noggin. And so here's something where that factored into my purchase decision with a multi-platform game I made recently. Here's like the last main thing I'm going to talk about today, and then I promise I'll shut up. I picked up the Monster Hunter Stories 1 and 2 bundle on Switch 2 today, and by on Switch 2 I mean I got these Switch 1 games on Switch 2. But they are also on Steam, and so that begs the question, why did I get them on Switch 2? Well, first of all, and if we're being honest, the main reason is they were not on sale on Steam. It would have cost 50 quid to buy them both on Steam, and it cost me like 13 quid to buy them both on Switch 2, or 16 quid, or something like that. But second of all, I don't know, something in my head was just like, yeah, they're Switch games. Like, I know they're also available on Steam, but in my head they feel like Switch games. They feel like they would be more at home on this console, and maybe that's just because I can play it portably. I can, when I go to bed, I can play it in handheld mode and snuggle up with it, which is what I did last night. It was a pretty good time. So yeah, that's all my thoughts about what I buy where and why, and how I feel about multi-platform releases on the Switch 2, and if I would get them there, or continue to use this as an exclusives machine. I'm sure over time my attitude towards multi-platform games on the Switch will return to being limited to exclusives, or, you know, this game I already own elsewhere is super cheap and it'd be cool to have it in a handheld format. But for now, I'm a little more open to it. But I did want to talk about Monster Hunter Stories, because I've been playing it, the first one. And it was on my mind because Monster Hunter Stories 3 got a trailer in the latest Direct, which was probably the only other thing I really... Well, it is a thing, I didn't actually really care about it when it showed up. Because the thing I want to talk about in regards to this is I'm not a big Monster Hunter guy. And I've tried several times to become one because some of my closest friends' favourite games are Monster Hunter games. I hear about them a lot. And so I have played a few hours of Monster Hunter World, and I have played a few hours of Monster Hunter Rise, and I have had Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate on my wish list for years and years and years, and it's £5 at the minute. I'm going, well, maybe next time. And I've always looked at Monster Hunter Stories as like, if I wanted a creature collecting game, like a Pokemon game, I don't know that I would want it in the Monster Hunter aesthetic. Boy, was I wrong. And I'm like 5-6 hours into this, so my opinion could change, but I am having a really good time. It's one of those games that I picked up expecting to like, and I found out that I love it, and I'm just kind of like, I need to tell everyone about this game, because what the hell? I didn't realize, why did nobody tell me this game was this good? And you know, quite importantly, Monster Hunter Stories 1 is a port of a 3DS title, so the graphics are very limited, the characters are very chibi, and also in terms of like tone and story, it's a lot more child-oriented, or child-friendly. I'm not sure I'd call it child-friendly, there are some very dark things that happen fairly early on, but just in terms of overall presentation, it seems like it's aimed at a younger audience than the normal Monster Hunter games are, as opposed to Stories 2 and 3, which feel like a lot more serious JRPGs based on the trailers. One definitely feels lighter and more whimsical, apart from all the trauma that happens, but I like it. And here's the thing, here's what I really like about this. It's not just Pokemon and Monster Hunter dressing, it's more like Monster Hunter Light in a good way. It's like, what if Monster Hunter was a turn-based RPG, and that would just happen to make it a creature collection game, or a monster taming game, or whatever you want to call that genre. And so instead of going, this is our take on Pokemon, it's more like, this is just what the game happens to be, and we do things in a way that makes sense for a Monster Hunter title. So you're not collecting creatures in highly advanced devices and storing them away as data and throwing them out and catching them and stuff like that. Instead, you are stealing eggs from monster dens and hatching them and raising them as your own. We don't worry about ethics in Monster Hunter games, don't worry about it. Instead of a Monster Hunter, you are known as a Monster Rider, and part of me wonders if they should have been calling this series Monster Rider all along, because apparently the stories of these games are not that great or important, much like Pokemon games, so I'm not too worried. You're not really there for the story, you're more there for the gameplay. And the thing that really surprised me about this game is it is a Monster Hunter game. From the menus to the way armor works, you know, you buy it, you upgrade it, you get materials to upgrade it with and stuff like this, to the way monsters work, of like, yeah, this monster's been terrorizing this area and we need to go and take care of it, and it's got these elemental resistances, and you should take these weapons. I'm assuming this is stuff that props up later in game. It has been alluded to. It's not all that prevalent at the start, if I'm being honest. But, like, your character is, like, part of the party. It's almost Pokemon Legends Arceus in a way of, like, there are actual consequences for your character within the world. And also just, you know, it takes place in a time before technology and all this stuff. But yeah, you can still have like a great sword or like a twin daggers, I think, probably, maybe, I don't know. But there's like a dagger and a shield. And it's so recognizably Monster Hunter. And what I realize about this is probably the style of Monster Hunter game that I will really enjoy and get into, as opposed to the main series. Because there are things that the main series games do that I really like, and a lot of them are present here. And it turns out that what I'm not crazy about with the main series is I found it a bit repetitive, of like, oh, okay, now go out to this same area again and go find this monster instead and kill that one. And then go out again and go find this pack of monsters and take them down. It just kind of is the same thing over and over again. Whereas this, I guess it's the same thing over and over again, but in a format that I'm used to being slightly more repetitive and don't hate for it. You steal monster eggs from dens, and so I get really excited when I see a den, which is basically, if you've ever played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, those dens, they pretty much stole that from this game. Except instead of going into a boss instance, you go into like this mini dungeon with spawns of monsters which you can fight or avoid or so on. And then apparently this game goes pretty deep into like genetics of, you can get shards of different eggs and match them together to match different kinds of monsters together or something. I don't know. I haven't got that far in the game yet. But, you know, just like normal Pokemon games, the different monsters you hatch will have different stats. But also, I guess you can breed them or mix genetics into a single egg and make a different kind of monster. I don't know. I'm interested in getting there and finding out what that is all about. But I've been told it goes pretty heavy on the whole, like, oh, cook your favorite monster with really good stats. And so that's fun. But yeah, I just get really excited about seeing a new monster den, finding an egg, taking it back, hatching it, and finding out what it is. That's really fun. That's a great gameplay loop. And then you've got the general Monster Hunter things of, like, as I've already said, like quests and sub-quests and all this stuff that makes it feel really rewarding to be out in the open world, alongside, like, picking up resources as you're running past them. When you're mounted on your monster, there's no stopping and doing the animation. It's just like press A and you pick it up as you go by, and that feels really rewarding as well. And also, I've been told the stories for these games are bad. It's not compelling, it's not crazy, it's not super original or deep, but I am interested. It's about this village where, you know, this is a world in which monsters get hunted. This is a village where they befriend them and ride them and tame them and stuff. And they're like pretty insular because of that. And then what kind of society does that kind of village have? And what does it mean to be a monster rider? And all this stuff. You're still a monster hunter, by the way. You still outright kill monsters that you run into in the open world. So that does make it a bit strange of like, well, if we've established that monsters can be our friends, how does it feel to hunt them and kill them and wear their skin suddenly? But yeah, overall, I would say I'm really interested in this game. And I was kind of expecting as well Monster Hunter Stories 1 to be a bit of a dud, and for Monster Hunter Stories 2 to be where the real, you know, enjoyment lies, because like I said, 2 has a bit of a different vibe to it than 1. It looks a bit more high budget, it feels a bit more serious, but I was not expecting to enjoy 1 as much as I had. Or have so far. So I'm going to keep playing that. And who knows, it might end up being my favourite non-Pokemon monster collecting, taming, whatever game. But yeah, notably, this is actually one of the games that isn't fully compatible with Switch 2. 99% of Switch 1 games are. This one has a bug where they have some pre-rendered like CGI cutscenes and the audio. There are things missing from it, and there's a big delay between things happening and the actual audio playing, and it's just really low quality. They do mention this in the settings about if you're playing this on a non-compatible device, make sure you choose stereo audio settings or else this will happen. But they don't provide a stereo audio setting, so I don't know what's going on there. But it's only a handheld problem, and when you actually have it docked, it's fine. But this is a game I'm really enjoying playing handheld for the Switch 2 screen, because as I alluded to earlier, this is the Switch 1 game I was talking about earlier, where I was like, there's a Switch 1 game which isn't very great graphically or anything like that, but it's really colourful, the colours really pop, and it's super smooth. So I don't know if it's actually had like a secret 120 frame rate update. That wouldn't make sense because surely they would fix the cutscene bug. Or maybe just the way the game is coded, it just happens to be uncapped and we're seeing like a max frame rate version of the game. And now as we approach almost an hour into this especially long episode of the Weekly Waypoint, I think I'm just about done with all of my Switch 2 experiences and things that I wanted to say. If you stuck with me this far, thank you so much. Let me know in the comments below what you feel about Switch 2 or what your favourite game is, or if you have one or if you're planning to get one or whatever you like. You can also just tell me your favourite colour. I'll give you a heart to say, hey, I read it. And I don't necessarily have anything to contribute, but I appreciate the comment. If you liked this video, please leave a like and subscribe for more. I should probably go and start gathering that footage that you've been watching. So, oh boy, that's going to be a lot of footage. In the interest of not making it any longer, goodbye.